Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
Sorry about you and Lauren.
Thank you. Appreciate that. There's just too much that happened since we got home. I'm usually the one that I fucked up, or like I was somebody that like did something stupid. I know.
Are you gonna say she fucked up?
No, I'm not saying she fucked up. I'm just saying I'm usually in the position of like being defensive about like what I did or like.
Interesting. Yeah, so he's still in that mode that he was talking about earlier at this party, that it's not his fault. It just happened. It's not his responsibility. What else could he have done? I'd really be curious, and it sounds like Molly has taken him to task, which is great, mostly because he deserves to be taken to task, but also I'm curious as to what he'll say. But it's just so fascinating because it doesn't look like he's lying. He could be. It looks like he is telling the truth. It has looked from the beginning. He could be lying about half or all of it. I don't know. But it looks to me like he's telling the truth. And it's particularly believable that he thinks he's telling the truth because it's so weird. You know, if you're going to lie, then lie about something better than this, right? It just seems like he's speaking from his heart, and the things that he is saying is just so weird, which is, you know, the result of developed personality defenses and distortions and transferences and displacements and projectification and just regular projection and denial. It's all there. That's why we have those terms. That's why over 100 years ago, psychoanalysts, in observing humans, started putting labels to these things because it was confusing to the early psychoanalysts. And different theorists had different ideas about it, and different contemporary psychoanalysts will have their ideas. I have my particular way of looking at it as well, but the framework of it is the same, that there's an inner conflict. There's pain, there's irreconcilable forces, dynamics, psychodynamics that need some resolution. And if they're not going to resolve, we just impose one on top of it. We project, or we displace, or we deny, or we transform, or we sublimate, or just anyway. So I want to rewind this because it seems like he's telling the truth. And he is so in the defense that he doesn't understand how silly it sounds.
Sorry about you and Lauren.
Thank you. Appreciate that. There's just too much that happened since we got home.
There's just too much that happened since we got home. Okay, what happened? Nothing happened. You were in limbo the whole time. Plus, he, even at the getaway, was already tweaking about it. Nothing happened. What happened since you got home? You knew that your sister would disapprove, and lo and behold, she did. You knew that before you got home. You were already tweaking about her having dated two people that he knew at some point before the pods, maybe close to the pods, who cares? So what happened when you got home?
I'm usually the one that I fucked up.
So then he says, I'm usually the one that fucks up because, as my mom would hammer me about, I lack integrity. Who knows if those things are connected, but it wouldn't be surprising if they were, right? I'm the one that fucks up. I'm the one who lacks integrity. I'm the one who screws things up, which is completely in line with dependent personality. I don't know about him, but dependent people at the core, if we were to talk about, one way to think about the personality disorders is to think about the primary trauma. I don't usually hear them talked about in this way. There are some theorists that have things akin to this, but when I'm teaching, I like to reduce things as a helpful tool. It's not a complete way of understanding personality or personality disorders, but if we were to think about the primary trauma for people that are borderline, the primary trauma is abandonment and betrayal. For narcissistic people, the primary trauma is neglect, emotional, and making the child feel irrelevant and that they don't matter, that they don't even really exist. For the dependent person, the overly dependent individual, they are made to feel inherently incompetent and childish and their anger needs to go away, depending. But at the core of it, though, the primary trauma is incompetence. And we're not talking about just like, yeah, I'm just not really good at things. It's an all-encompassing, distorted perception about the self that they can't do anything on their own. Now, there might be some things that they are capable of, particularly if it doesn't have resonance with their childhood incompetence domains. You know, you can have someone like, I've treated many people who have extreme incompetence when it comes to relationships, when it comes to finances and paying the bills, but they are themselves, as a dependent underfunctioner, able to hold down a job. Maybe they're able to keep up a good health regimen or something, or cook for themselves. So they're not like completely incompetent on all domains, but it just depends. Every dependent person at the core has this massive distortion of themselves that is incompetent. And as a part of that, they believe they're not capable of really affecting the world because of how inherently incompetent they are, and also how childish, how immature they are, how little they are. You know, the way a child doesn't naturally understand or feel, and they shouldn't be made to feel this way, that they can really affect things in their world. You know, we don't want to put that burden on children. We all understand that with our own kids, they can devastate us, you know, if they say the wrong thing, particularly if it lasts for a long period of time. You know, they could completely ruin our lives to the point where we might never recover, you know, if they just decide that they hate us, that kind of thing. But we don't want them to know that they can do that to us, because we want them to feel free to be themselves and grow and not have to worry about our ego. We have our people that we talk to, our spouses, our friends, our therapists, you know, our family members. We don't want children to have to worry about that. And for dependent people, they retain that innocence, if you will, and that immaturity that they're not capable. How it's to the 5-year-old, if they were able to articulate it, and sometimes we can recall this is how we feel, that how could you possibly affect your parents? Your parents are so capable. They're literally like gods to you. They can do anything. I remember my mom would go to the grocery store and she would buy everything with a check. You know, she'd write a check. And that just seemed like miraculous at a time when I was like, I wanted to buy candy or a car or something. And my mom would just pull out the check. But it's like, how does she get away? How does she know how to do that? She can just go into a store, take whatever she wants, and just write a check, and she just walks out the door. I mean, she's a god. I remember thinking that, among a whole bunch of other things. That's the way we want kids to think about their parents. And so the notion of, wait, I have power, I emotionally can devastate my parents, how is that possible? I am tiny. We want tiny kids to think of themselves that way. They're dependent, they're incompetent. They're, learning how to do stuff. I can draw or I can run or whatever. And then all the complex around his mom dying. But I'm guessing the complex was way before that, maybe solidified in time by the mom dying, and the sister takes over. He seeks the sister to replace mom, or so have I said this explicitly? Maybe I haven't even thought of it. That there's a good chance that the dynamic between him and his mom, who knows, was one of overfunctioner, underfunctioner, codependency, and underfunctioner. And you lack integrity was kind of the main message that kept him in this perpetual state of childishness and hurt without any way of asserting himself and feeling completely incompetent. There's just, you're hopeless. Before I move on to another, and trying to please. Okay, well, clearly I can't lack integrity. I can't do anything on my own, and what happens is these individuals end up being incompetent because they're not allowed to practice. In order for people to become competent, you have to make mistakes. That's how you learn. Every time you make a mistake, you're like, look, you're incompetent, stop doing that, let me fix things around you, but you're incompetent. You never practice, and so you are incompetent in a lot of ways. Mom dies, and then he just the family reconfigures around a different overfunctioner, underfunctioner with sister, And he might have even solicited his sister to step into that role, which can happen by exhibiting incompetence and underfunctioning. And then the sister's like, if I don't take care of him, he will self-destruct. That happens sometimes. Who knows? Or the sister had, similar kinds of traumas that just played out in an opposite way. But this is all speculative, of course. And then he is in this perpetual state of, not only can I not really affect other people because I'm nothing, I can't break up with someone if I'm not really an adult. I'm a child. I can't break up with someone. I'm also not competent to make a decision about whether I should be with someone or not with someone. So how could it possibly be my fault? It's not my responsibility. Who would even think that I would have that responsibility? So, and at the same time, why do I feel guilty? And why do I feel like I'm the bad guy? How is this happening yet again? Well, I just need to convince myself, and it feels very, congruent, that I didn't do anything wrong because I didn't do anything because I'm a child. And we hear stuff like this.
There's just too much that happened since we got home. I'm usually the one that I fucked up, or like I was somebody that like did something stupid. I know.
Are you going to say she fucked up?
No, I'm not saying she fucked up.
And sorry, I'll stop yammering, but I think he is specifically referring to cheating. I think that's what he's referring to.
I'm just saying I'm usually in the position of like being defensive about like what I did or like why I did things.
And maybe Molly would bring this up. She was telling Lauren that he did cheat while he was engaged. Before he broke up with Lauren, some girl was all over him. Now, who knows what that means? Maybe he was pushing her away. I don't know.
Things.
One of our first conversations was about how you push people away.
Yep.
And from the information I gathered from her, it sounded like you did not give it a chance and you were just like pushing her away.
Okay, that's a great opener. It's tapping into something that he said. And I don't know what her agenda is or if she has one or what her motivation is. But if you're wanting to start a conversation to help him see the light, this would be the opener, right? Because you're saying, remember how you said, and then, I'm hearing things. And that's not super accusatory. She's not leading with, hey, I heard you actually were getting together with someone. What about that? So she's saying, remember how you said you pushed people away? And I don't think we saw that in the edit. So that's notable. And she's saying, yeah, I think you were looking for a way to push her away. Yeah. And that is the avoidant trope.
Her to end it? You don't feel that way?
No.
Oh, well, then when she finishes that, she was, well, let's rewind that.
Sounded like you did not give it a chance and you were just like pushing her away for her to end it. You don't feel that way?
No. There's no way between my situation with like my friends and like my sister and family knowing about her.
Yeah, I think it's one way of interpreting it, and it would be more common that this would happen, that he was pushing her to break up with him. And that's possible, and that is one way of looking at it. And maybe that was part of it or an outside hope he had. But I think ultimately the stronger position or the stronger defense that he was engaging in wasn't to push her to break up, but to just... and it wasn't on purpose, as I hope I'm laying this out. And I don't know, but if it is in this ballpark, individuals who have dependent personality are not in a state of underfunctioning and dependence because they choose to be. It's not manipulative. They believe deep down it is the only way for the universe to work out. They know that they are not competent. They know that they don't have a place of volition and intention in the world. They're like children in their minds. So how could it possibly be my fault if I'm incompetent and I don't do anything? I'm just sitting here, right? It'd be like if your family, and there's some young kids in the family, and you go to a restaurant and the parents get into an argument with the waiter, kids, if things are going right, won't blame themselves, even if it might have even been partially their fault, like the kids were being a little loud or something, or something that it doesn't even have to do with them, right? Kids shouldn't feel responsible. Whereas if you were a friend of someone that was getting an argument with a waiter, even though it wasn't your fault, you might feel some responsibility of like, I should probably step in. You know, if you didn't step in and things went bad, you could say to yourself, oh, you know, I was avoiding. I was scared. I probably should have stepped. It's not entirely my fault, but maybe, right? But kids, we wouldn't expect them. And it's an exaggeration, but it is definitely in that camp. So for him, it's like, I just want her to know, and I want everyone to know, this isn't my fault. It's everything that was happening outside. It was completely outside of my control. She came into the thing dating someone. My friends were saying this thing about her. My sister, I mean, blah, blah, blah. What was I supposed to? And he's been exhibiting that vibe from the beginning. It's been consistent at every turn in the pods, getting engaged after the pod, you know, the way he even decided, the way he talked about who to propose to did not exhibit, this is what I want. It was always in the context of not bothering people, not bother him. Oh, I'm going to bother. Oh, I don't want to bother Lauren, you know?
And they were like, they were
I did.
all like,
Again,
fuck her. We never want to.
No, they would never say that.
Why wouldn't you be like, fuck you guys? Like, you guys, like, I love you, but also meet her first.
They also had an issue with the situation.
Why?
Okay, roles reversed. If we got engaged and you found out I was dating somebody for 2
Yeah. The caption says what I would have very much imagined and hoped that Molly would say. I wouldn't have fucking cared. What different? We all hopefully dated people before the pods. What does it matter if it was just before the pods or 6? It doesn't matter. What is the fucking difference?
I cared. Personally, I wouldn't have cared. But at that point,
I do.
And one very out there hypothesis or side hypothesis that I have is that he comes from an extremely naive traditional world. It could just be another product of his inner childishness, that he just has this really weird black and white point of view. And it even could be some residual jealousy or black and whiteness around attachments. Like, hey, mom, I don't want to have to compete for your love. I want your pure all attention. You know, that's what very young children, infants will want. And, you know, for the most part deserve, meaning they always deserve it, but meaning that you can't give your 100% attention to your infant, right? But they deserve something close to that, right? And develop normally with something close to that. So it could just be that. I've seen things that are definitely like that in individual. What can be described that way anyway. But there's something he thinks he's making a solid point. He's like, well, what if the roles were reversed? He's not really reversing the roles. He's just saying, what if? Well, maybe reversing the roles with Lauren. You say, well, what if it was you? Well, or no, I guess he is reversing the roles. Sorry. What if I was dating and, you know, you and I are engaged? I think the way he says it and the way he said it from the beginning, from the getaway and forward till now, he seems to think he's making a point, and he's not making a point. And that points in the direction of something, some kind of issue, either denial or lack of extreme naivete and lack of experience. It just kind of feels that way, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like he's what's it? Rip Van Winkle, is that his name? Who wakes up after 1,000 years? It just seems like he just got off the UFO and doesn't understand how humans work. And he's like, well, I heard you're not, or, I mean, that's a funny way to put it. It seems like he believes, right? And so in a very specific insular Catholic world, that happens. It's rare, but it can happen. I mean, we tend to think about fundamentalist religious groups as being other religious groups, right? Not necessarily Catholics, and certainly around the world, but in the United States, at least for me, anecdotally, I don't typically hear about fundamentalist Catholics indoctrinating people into this very weird black and white, strange, cult-like way of seeing the world. But it wouldn't be the first time that that's happened. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.